Hello everybody, this is Patrick Musilek in August of 2025, and I wanted to say that this video was originally recorded in November of 2022. I've thought about this reaction a lot over the last few years and the fact that I didn't edit it and release it. The reason I did not do that is because it is not a positive reaction. I reacted very negatively to this album. This Demon Hunter album was so disappointing to me. I have never listened to it since I did this reaction. So you're going to be watching me listening to this album the only time I've ever heard it. Me sitting down here now to edit the video is going to be the second time I've heard it. And I just wanted to say before the video starts that this is a very negative review. I was very disappointed. This was 3 years ago. So many things in my life have changed since then. I was diagnosed with leukemia. I battled cancer. I had a bone marrow transplant. I had a niece born. I've had all sorts of things happen, and my mind is in a much different place now. However, I do feel like a lot of the things that I was complaining about, if I'm remembering correctly, were production things, the mastering, the volume of things, the mixing. It sounded really bad to me from what I remember. So I just wanted to record a little intro here at the beginning, warning people if you expect this album reaction, this album review to be this like wonderful, like Demon Hunter's the greatest band of all time, which I really do think that Demon Hunter is one of the greatest metal bands of all time. I have always loved them. I've loved the Christian aspect of them. I don't think of them as a Christian metal act. I think of them in the same vein as Soilwork, In Flames, Nemec, Raunchy. Those bands are the bands I grew up on that got me into metal, along with other things like Children of Bodom, nowadays, Metallica, things like that. But I just want to warn everybody, and I also want to say that sometimes I am wrong about things in the moment. That's what doing a reaction is. My videos are always reactions to the first time I've heard something without knowing very much about it in terms of research for the specific project itself. I knew a lot about Demon Hunter when I recorded this. And now, in August of 2028, we're getting ready for a new Demon Hunter album in a couple of months, and I have been scared to listen to anything Demon Hunter has released since this album because it was just so devastatingly disappointing to me at the time. I also want to say the first 50 minutes of this video, we don't actually get to music until the 50-minute mark, and now I'm recording here for a couple minutes here, so it'll be even longer than that, but I may decide to cut some of that out. However, what I do on my channel, or at least what I did several years ago, was since it was the first time I was going to be talking about Demon Hunter, I went through my entire history of Demon Hunter, what I liked about them, what I didn't like. I think I go through their whole catalog, and I do like having those sections in the videos, if for no other reason than if people want to see my opinions on Demon Hunter in the future, I can tell them to go back to that video. And so that's why I'm deciding to edit this video, get it out. If I do hear myself say something stupid that I don't still agree with while I'm listening to this, I will make little editor's notes here and there. I'm not going to record a whole new reaction to this or anything like that. I think it was important. It's important to show how I felt at the time. But yeah, so let's get into the video without further ado. Thank you very much, and try not to be too mad at me. And if you agree with me, definitely let me know in the comments.
Today, for the very first time, I am so excited to finally be listening to the brand new Demon Hunter album. This is Exile. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on my channel. If you're new and you've never seen a video like this on my channel before, know that what I'm going to do is take this new Demon Hunter album, put it in my computer, and listen to it all the way through from front to back for the very first time, while talking over, I would say, probably a majority of the music, just sort of letting you know what I hear. On my channel, as you've seen in the title of this video, I am an audio engineer. So here on my channel, I will be talking mostly about production things, different aspects of the music, like how it was created, maybe how it was recorded, some of the mixing, different mixing aspects, maybe even a little bit of the mastering. It kind of just depends how the music sounds, but I tend to focus more on the production side of music rather than lyrical breakdowns or having some sort of like a deep connection to the music on some sort of like a personal connection level. I tend to connect to music much more based on how it sounds and thinking about how it was created and all of that, and just sort of like letting myself enjoy it, or hate it, as it were, though I'm pretty sure we're going to enjoy this Demon Hunter album. But I also want to just say right off the bat that in my videos, I try to include the audio from the album in the video itself. And I actually asked Demon Hunter a question on Facebook on one of their posts about this album over the last few weeks. I just asked him, I was like, hey, are you going to allow your music to be used in reaction videos and things on YouTube? And someone in their camp, someone that runs their social media, I assume, responded to me within like a day and said, yes, we are going to allow people to do that. So hopefully, fingers and everything crossed, that means that I'll be able to actually include the audio from the album in this video. So hopefully you'll be able to hear exactly what I'm hearing. If not, know in the description of the video, I will include a link to listen to the album on Spotify, and I'll try to find links to other things and just kind of see, you know, if I can find one of those like link tree things where you can just like click on it and it goes to like listen to the album everywhere. I'll try to do that, and I'll do that regardless, but, you know, just anyway, wanted to mention that. Hopefully I'll be able to use the music, though, because I think that they are definitely a smart enough band to understand the value of the reactions and all of this stuff, so. Another thing I want to say in the description of the video, there will be timestamps for all the different sections. I'm going to spend a little bit up front here talking about some random things that have nothing to do with Demon Hunter. Then I'm going to talk about Demon Hunter a little bit and what they mean to me as a band. Then I'll go through and listen to the whole album, and then I will give my sort of overall thoughts or my review, if you will, at the end of the video. So you can skip to any section you want, including individual songs. So if you have a song you like that's one of your favorite songs from this album, you know, just look on the timeline of the video, look in the description of the video, you'll see everything clearly labeled. And I try to have everything clearly labeled on screen as well if you just want to kind of, you know, skip through the timeline yourself. Okay, so let's start talking about Demon Hunter now, the reason everybody is here. I have my stack of Demon Hunter CDs here. I have Exile is their 11th studio album, and it's actually incredible because, let's see if I can find a big version of it. Maybe in the book. I love, for those of you who are unaware, several members of this band, Ryan, the lead vocalist included, plus I think it might be his brother or someone else from the band, they have a graphic design company that I believe is called Invisible Creature or Invisible Creatures, something like that. Let me just look real quick just to make sure. Invisible Creature. Art direction is designed by Ryan Clark for Invisible Creature. So all Demon Hunter's artwork is really cool, but I absolutely love, and I see here is this might be the best chance I'll get to show you. My lights aren't set up perfectly for this. So here you can see it says Exile. Now that logo incorporates the Roman numeral XI for 11, which is really awesome because this is, according to them, Demon Hunter's 11th album. And so I have in this stack here, and I'm not going to talk about all of them because this is actually the second reaction that I've done on my channel over the last 2 years, which is insane to me that I've been doing this long. Because when Songs of Death and Resurrection came out 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, in 2020, I actually did a reaction on this channel to this album. And so I'm not going to go through the whole discography and tell you how I think of and feel about every one of their albums because I'm pretty sure I did that in this video. But I do want to mention just a few things because I'm excited to listen to Exile, but I'm also maybe a touch trepidatious. We'll see. But I just want to say I do have all 10 of their previous albums. Now, I'm not sure exactly what they consider to be their first 10 albums because, just to go through this real quick, obviously we have their debut album, which I think is just their self-titled. Yeah, it's just their self-titled. Then we have Summer of Darkness. We have the Triptych, which is their third album. So they've always had this sort of like, what number album are we on? Then we have Storm the Gates of Hell, and I have the deluxe edition and the regular edition of that one. Then we have The World is a Thorn. Then we get to the only Demon Hunter CD that I cannot listen to, the only Demon Hunter album that I cannot listen to at all because, and I actually hate this album, and it's purely for one reason, one production reason. The kick drum sounds awful on this album. It sounds absolutely terrible, and it's so bad that I actually can't listen to this album. I've listened to the entire thing once when I got it, and I haven't been able to listen to it since then. And so that's how I feel about this album. And I do remember, I'm pretty sure I talked about that quite a bit in my Songs of Death and Resurrection video. So we have True Defiance, really disappointing to me. And then after their, what is in my opinion their worst album in their catalog, we have what is my absolute favorite album in their catalog, Extremist. Extremist, is that what it's called? I should know. Extremist. I have the vinyl sitting over here. for this album, so I'll just show this off real quick. I got this at a concert when I got to see them. I was very lucky. And I bought my copy of the vinyl when it had just come out. It's very cool. Like I said, I would not necessarily purchase a vinyl for every one of their albums. I guess I could if I could afford it. But this I thought was definitely worth it because I had fallen in love with the album already when I got to see them in concert. And I absolutely loved the album. And I don't think I necessarily knew at that point that it was going to be my favorite album in their catalog because I'd only had it for like a couple weeks maybe. But I'll talk a little bit more about this album in a second. But I do want to say, so far, that brings us up to a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 albums. Then we have for 8, we have Outlive, which is the Demon Hunter CD that I connected with the least other than True Defiance. But I just never really got into this album. I don't think I really get it or got it that much. It's okay, but I don't care for really any of the songs on here. None of them really stand out to me at all. Then we have the double album, which is War and Peace, and then, of course, Songs of Death and Resurrection. So the reason I bring up this whole numbering thing is because if you go through their catalog, and I'm like 95% sure I'm not missing anything here, but if you go through their whole catalog, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we have these 3 albums. Now, however, I thought at the time, and I still do, calling this 2 separate albums is super cheap, in my opinion, and kind of like a low blow to the Demon Hunter fans, because these were released, I'm pretty sure, on the exact same day, and they are obviously 2 sides of the same album. This is a double album, but they insisted on releasing them separately with separate prices and everything, and I maybe understand why they did that, because I'm sure like every heavy band that has gotten maybe slightly less heavy over the course of their career, they have tons of fans telling them, oh, I wish you would sound like you did on your debut album, or Summer of Darkness was the last time Demon Hunter was like a great band. I'm sure that they get that all the time, which is so crazy because they've definitely evolved as a band in lots of positive and some negative ways as well over the last 20 years. But it's clear to anyone who listens to these that War is their sort of like all the heavy songs, more sort of aggressively driven songs. And Peace is the songs with a lot more clean vocals. There is a little bit of heavy on here, but for the most part, it's not that heavy. There's more experimental stuff kind of on both of these. There's a cool sort of like Old West sounding song on here. But I actually really enjoy both of these albums. I think I would enjoy them a lot more if they were in one package and sold as a double album. It's so silly to me that they split this and did it like this. I can't imagine that any Demon Hunter fan decided to only buy one of these. But it's kind of a disappointment to me that they did that. I guess they did get to like have 2 separate things of art, but for Demon Hunter albums in the past, they've had like all sorts of like, for the triptych I specifically remember, they had like multiple album covers, and so depending on which one you got when you went to the store, you got different album covers. They've done that I think they did that with True Defiance as well. So like, artwork is such a huge, impactful, like important thing to this band, but it's not even. I mean, these covers aren't even that crazy different. The pictures aren't even that different. It's not. They could have easily included all this artwork in one package, so I'm a little disappointed. But the reason I bring up all the numbering and everything is I'm assuming they're including these as 2, because we have 9 albums before this, and then either they're including this as one double album, and then the acoustic Songs of Death and Resurrection, the acoustic album, as number 10, but I don't think that's the case, because I was looking at some artwork on here somewhere, and there was a Demon Hunter logo that had the X clearly in it, and maybe that was in here. It was somewhere somewhere I saw the X like clearly labeled in their artwork, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then of course to have the XI in True Defiant or in Exile over here says that they're considering Exile their 11th album, and so I'm gonna just choose to believe, I guess I could look this up, but I'm going to choose to believe that Songs of Death and Resurrection is considered like a greatest hits sort of thing for them, a compilation album rather than an actual numbered album in their line of albums, and that War and Peace are 2 separate albums. I have 2 separate CDs in my hand that were sold separately twice, so that's their discography. And just to talk very briefly, I mean, I love Demon Hunter. You can tell from this stuff I have. I have a Demon Hunter shirt. that I couldn't find to wear for this video. I've always liked them as a band. Demon Hunter is one of the 4 metal bands that for me really influenced me growing up, got me and helped get me into metal. I recently did a video on my channel here about Soilwork, reacting to the new Soilwork album, Over Givenheiten. And in that video, I talked about the 4 metal bands that really influenced me and my musical trajectory in terms of what I like and my taste in music. And those 4 metal bands were Soilwork, In Flames, Raunchy, and Demon Hunter. And Demon Hunter, you know, I first heard them on the, I think it was the Headbangers Ball Volume 1 soundtrack, which is the first time that I also heard Soilwork and the first time that I also heard In Flames. So I owe a lot to that specific soundtrack, but you know, I remember enjoying Demon Hunter when they first sort of came out. I think their first album was out when I discovered them. And then every album since then, I've just kind of been with them. I've seen them in concert, I think, twice. Yes, I saw them once when they were playing in Omaha at the Sokol Auditorium, and that was a really special show. That was when I believe that was when I purchased the Extremist vinyl. And I believe I bought maybe I didn't buy a Demon Hunter shirt at that time because I chose to spend my money on the vinyl. But that was a really special concert for me because I got to actually meet their drummer, Yogi, after the show and hang out with him for a little bit because he is personal friends with a family of mine that I'm friends with several members of the family. So I got to go to the show with them, and then afterwards we got to spend some time talking about their music and everything, and that was really awesome. I remember that specific concert, I wore my Depeche Mode t-shirt, which I like to wear my Depeche Mode t-shirt to almost all the concerts I go to because whether or not a band knows it or not, they've definitely been influenced by Depeche Mode. And I think Depeche Mode is one of the greatest bands that's ever been a band. And so I remember that specifically because Yogi told me, he said, "Oh man, I should go get Ryan, and he would love to see your shirt. He would love to know that someone in a Depeche Mode shirt was at one of our concerts." Because I don't know if there's like a ton of crossover between like Depeche Mode fans, Demon Hunter fans, but certainly if you're watching this video, you're a Demon Hunter fan, definitely go look up and listen to Depeche Mode. They've been a band for 40 years, I think, at this point. And so it might be a little daunting, but just start with their most recent stuff and kind of go back through their catalog if you want. But anyway, that was a really special night. Got to talk to Yogi. I actually did talk to him a little bit about the True Defiance kick drum and stuff, but I believe I told this story in the Songs of Death and Resurrection video, but you know, I just wanted to bring that up, say it was really cool. And then I got to see them actually play, I believe, in Lincoln, Nebraska, with In Flames. And that was obviously a very special show for me, getting to see 2 of my most favorite metal bands performing in the same night. That was great. So as I mentioned, Extremist is my absolute favorite Demon Hunter album. And I'm hoping that Exile can be even better and will become my new favorite Demon Hunter album, though I don't know if that's the case. But to me, one of the reasons that Extremist is the best is that I feel like the band was hitting on all cylinders and they were doing everything right across the board. I think the best vocals that Ryan Clark has ever sung, the best vocal melodies that he's come up with are all on this album, and they definitely have fantastic vocals and vocal melodies and things throughout their whole career, but I feel like he really shined on this album with his vocal performance. But I also feel like the production of any Demon Hunter album has been the best. Demon Hunter has sounded sonically the best that they've ever sounded on Extremist. I think that the production is fantastic across the board. The guitars, the drums, the bass, the subsonic low frequencies are treated really well. Ryan's vocals are in the mix very well. Everything was recorded very clearly. The kick, the drums, like I said, the drums were recorded really well. All the samples that they chose for the triggers and all those things, the drum replacement, everything on this album, I believe, was done perfectly. Now, I do understand if certain people don't like this album as much because it's definitely one of, other than Peace, I would say that it's definitely Demon Hunter's like least heavy album. There's some really cool heavy moments on the album, like Gasoline and certain things, but even still, this album I feel is like 70, maybe 60, 70% clean vocals compared to the harsh vocals, whereas their earlier albums are maybe 70 to 80% harsh vocals with clean vocals, usually during the chorus. But some of my all-time favorite Demon Hunter songs are on this album. I absolutely love I Will Fail You. I think it is such a great song, but there's so many great songs on this album. And so I bring that up to just say that is what I like about Demon Hunter. I think that Extremist is the best that they can be as a band. And I also really enjoy the guitar solos on that album. Up until that point, Demon Hunter, their earlier albums, they had almost no guitar solos. And their style of metal was significantly more rhythm-based rather than like lead guitar-based and melodic, like, you know, melodic death metal. They were definitely more of like a groove, rhythm-based metal band when they started. And I like both of those sort of like genres of music, and I'm not saying that Demon Hunter has really changed genre over the years, but you can definitely hear the like lead guitar influence get ramped up as they've become a more mature band, and also they've had new members come and go. They have different, I believe the two guitar players for this album are different than, you know, they've had in the past. So I'm not sure what to expect on this album in terms of like lead guitars and things, but, you know, generally as a band, I've noticed, you know, metal bands that I liked when I was in high school 15, 20 years ago, as they are maturing and getting older as people and as musicians, I find that these metal bands tend to focus more on like the song arrangements and dynamics and things like that, and less on just being like aggressive and you know, heavy. And so I'm excited for that. And that's one of the things that I enjoyed about War and Peace. I think that they were able to take a bunch of risks, do different things. I personally like it when Demon Hunter is heavy and aggressive and Ryan is doing his distorted vocals, the screaming vocals. I like it when there's screaming vocals mixed with clean vocals. And if there's shouting gang vocals, things like that. I love all those different elements that they've used on their albums in the past. I have heard not a single second of this album. I've heard no single. I've not clicked on like a Facebook video or something as I've scrolled past it that's like a 10-second thing or preview of the album. I've heard none of it at all. So I don't know, like, because Demon Hunter has really disappointed me with the production of some of their albums in the past, with True Defiance and then like Outlive, and even World is a Thorn isn't actually my favorite album of theirs the way it sounds. I think that if I were to tell you my top 3 favorite Demon Hunter albums, it would definitely be Extremist, and then I believe Storm the Gates of Hell, and then after that it would be really tough to say. I enjoy Triptych. I actually really like Peace a lot. I like the different risks that they took on that album and the experimentation that they did. And I don't mind it when Demon Hunter is not being heavy, but like I already said, I do enjoy when they're being heavy as well. So we have also been seeing over the last few years a tiny bit of a trend for bands like this to go back a little bit more to their roots and have a bit more heavy aggressiveness to their songs. I know I haven't heard any of it yet, but I know people have been talking about the new In Flames, which comes out in a couple of months, February. They've released a couple singles so far, and I'm pretty sure from the feedback and stuff that I've read and seen, without hearing anything, I'm pretty sure that they are getting a little bit back to their more heavier roots. And, you know, but then again, certain bands like Soilwork, Soilwork is like a completely different band now than they were when they started. Although you can definitely track the trajectory of them as a band. But Demon Hunter has been fairly consistent. Really, for me, it's more about the production than the songwriting or the lyrics or anything like that, because it does vary so much from album to album. I enjoyed the production on War and Peace, but I don't think it was the best sounding Demon Hunter stuff. Like I said, that is Extremist in my opinion. So I don't really know what to expect for this. I do want to just point out before I get into it, I think that the cover of this Demon Hunter album, Exile, and I have my lights set up so terrible for this, I'm so sorry. But I do think that the cover here, which I'm not going to, maybe I'll put a high resolution photo up or something so you can see. The cover is really fascinating. It's like all these like charred bodies and stuff, but then the Demon Hunter logo is in there, and you can see the bodies more clearly in the Demon Hunter logo. And then, as you open this, it says in here in blue ink, it looks kind of black or purple in my video here, but it says black the hell out, which is really awesome. And this disc, again, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but this disc, it is my stupid lighting. I'm so sorry. This disc is maybe one of my favorite discs of that. I have thousands of CDs at this point. I have a humongous CD collection, and this is one of my all-time favorite discs. I love the way it's made. I absolutely love the deep but vibrant blue color. I love the imagery with the sort of like burned bodies and stuff. I love the very simple graphics at the top with their logo and stuff. I absolutely love the disc, and I know that's sort of a silly thing. Most people don't care about that, but I absolutely love it. The artwork in the album is kind of cool. It's white. It's mostly like white. And the band's picture is, in the desert and stuff. So that's a little bit different. It's less dark, but Demon Hunter has done that over the last few years. They're not afraid to use like white with their artwork, and they're not afraid to not look like some crazy metal band, And even in the pictures, Ryan here is wearing this really cool skeleton shirt, which reminds me a little bit of like Donnie Darko. The album was released in October, so there is a bit of like a Halloween theme, I guess, to this, but I don't think so. Now, one more thing I have to do. On the CD itself, the CD came with this little like side insert thing here. I have some Japanese CDs that had this on it, but very few bands from the US. But on the back, it has the song titles, because the back artwork to the CD has no song titles, which is something that bands are doing a lot more recently, which I find a little bit surprising. So it has the song titles, so I'll probably be actually looking at this for the song titles. But on the front, there's the logo a little bit bigger. Oh, shoot. My stupid lights. There you go. You can see it. The X and the I for 11, which is Roman numeral 11. X is a 10, and then an I is a 1. But it has this long blurb here, and I wanted to read this out. It says, Exile is the first ever concept album, which I don't necessarily know if that's true, because War and Peace sounds like a concept album to me, because one of them is about war and one of them is about peace, but whatever. So Exile is the first ever concept album by 20-year metal veterans Demon Hunter. Set in the aftermath of civilized society's collapse, the 12 songs examine modern life through the lens of a nonconformist, contemplating a life untethered. Completed by a comic book counterpart dramatizing the concept in a 4-part story, The World of Exile is an immersive interrogation of cultural norms and a call to true rebellion. Exile features guest appearances by Max Cavalera of Soulfly, Nailbomb, and Sepultura, Tom S. England of Evergrey, and Richie Faulkner of Judas Priest. So, okay, a lot of things to unpack there. First, that it's a concept album. That's really interesting. I did read through the lyrics of some of the songs. I didn't read all the way through it, but I did read through the lyrics of some of the songs. I couldn't tell really that it was a concept album. They're not using names of people or places or anything like that. Like, for example, I was just listening to the Deer Hunters album that came out this year, and that's a progressive rock band. And they have an album that came out this year that is also a concept album, and it talks about this fictional city that they made with all these different like classes and like sections of the city and stuff. And it's so deeply and clearly about something very specific. The album itself is about that stuff. There's no like universal stuff really within it. It's all just a concept album about that. Whereas I do feel like in reading through the lyrics here, you could take and apply these lyrics to any situation. So I appreciate that. I think that's really cool. Speaking about Demon Hunter lyrics just for a second, I will say I am a practicing Catholic, and I have said on my channel here before, I've talked about it before, I actually just did a Toby Mac reaction that should be coming up pretty soon on my channel for his album that came out earlier this year. But I find that my least favorite genre of music out of all the genres of music that there are is praise music or worship music. It is so hard for me to listen to it, and I know that it might be weird saying this, but it just seems so disingenuine to me. But there are certain Christian bands, Christian metal bands, Christian rock bands, that I really do enjoy, like Toby Mac, for example. But the biggest example of that for me has always been Demon Hunter. I love the fact that they're not afraid to talk about their faith. Their faith is a huge part of them as a band. It's included in the imagery. It's included in all the lyrics. And I don't mind that at all. In fact, I actually really enjoy that aspect of them. So I like that. Apart from that, and just looking at the lyrics of some of their previous stuff a little broader, I really do find that I enjoy the way that they see the world. A lot of their albums are a little bit dour and, maybe sound like little depressing and maybe almost like a little hopeless. But then there's also always like this little ray of hope in there. And there's positive vibes throughout some of it. A lot of it is very negative, but I feel like they're looking at it from the lens of not necessarily being defeatist, but being like, commentary on social stuff and cultural stuff and all these different things. And I actually enjoy all of that stuff. Like Demon Hunter is one of the few bands where I will pay attention to the lyrics. And if something does strike me while I'm listening to the album here and I hear a lyric that I want to talk about, I'll mention it and we'll talk about it. But again, that's not what I focus on. I want to mention real quick the guest vocalists. I am definitely familiar with Max Cavalera. I have one Soulfly album. I don't really know any Sepultura. I know that Sepultura is like a hugely famous and very big influential band, especially in like the Latin American culture, I believe, just Latin metal. I'm pretty sure that they are probably the biggest. I think Max Cavalera is from Mexico. I hope I'm not wrong in saying that, but I'm pretty sure that Sepultura is like the biggest Mexican metal band of all time. Hopefully I'm right about that. I know for sure they're like one of the biggest Latin metal bands of all time, Latin American metal bands of all time. Hugely influential for lots of bands like Nonpoint and what was that other band? El Nino was that the name of the band? El Nino? I think so. But also like Puya, which is one of I absolutely love Puya as a metal band. They only have 2 albums out, but their album Fundamental is, in my opinion, one of the best albums, maybe of all time, one of the best heavy albums of all time. And it's one of the coolest, like, it doesn't matter, juxtapositions of style, the sort of really cool Latin music with the metal music and the hip hop vibes and things. It's absolutely fantastic. But, so I'm familiar with Max Cavalera. Thomas S. England, I absolutely love. Evergrey is absolutely phenomenal. And I tried to listen to their last album that came out last year a few times, and I loved everything that I heard, but I never actually sat down and listened to it all the way through. But I'm glad people are still enjoying Evergrey. I have albums of theirs from like, I think the late 90s, for certainly early 2000s when I discovered them. And so there was all sorts of, I have probably 6, 7, 8, and maybe even 9 Evergrey albums, and I really enjoy them. There's not a lot of metal bands at the time that were doing just clean vocals. So I've always respected Tom England for that. And the fact that they're still going and they're really strong and they can have super incredibly heavy songs, but he just never does harsh vocals. I think that's really cool. So I'm excited to hear him on this album. And the guy who was from Judas Priest, Richie Faulkner, I feel like I should know who that is, but I am not a Judas Priest fan. I've never been into their music. Maybe as I get older, I'll get into it a little bit, but when I think of Judas Priest, I think of like hair metal. And I know that they're maybe a little bit heavier than that, but that's what I think of, and I just, no thank you. Maybe power metal would be a better way to say that, and less than hair metal, but I'm not a fan of the high-pitched voice with metal. But, maybe as I get older, I'll get into that a little bit more, but we'll see. So, okay, I feel like I've talked for way longer than I meant to, but you can tell Demon Hunter is a very important and special band to me. So let's get into this album. I have one thing I have to do, though. Look right here on my table, and I'll be right back with you in a second. So for this video, I had to have something special because we're doing Demon Hunter. I have my absolute favorite beverage of all time, Mountain Dew Voltage. I'm going to enjoy it while we're listening here. Now, as I'm pouring this, I will also say it's snowing outside as of the day I'm recording this, which is like November 11th or 12th. I'm not sure. So I feel like all nice and cozy and stuff, and I really enjoy cold weather, and I'm kind of excited now that we're getting into the deep, we're not into deep of the fall really yet, but Halloween's over. It's time to start focusing on Christmas, like all my records and stuff behind me. And we got some expansion here. Cheers. I had it in the freezer, so we got all this slush. That's great. But yeah, I don't know. It's cold outside and I feel nice and cozy in the house. I hope wherever you're at listening to this with me that you're also comfortable, that you have a beverage, a snack or something. We're going to be here for a little while. I don't know how long this album is. But I'm happy that you're here with me to experience this. And if you want to skip around, like I said, please feel free to do that. Do not feel obligated to listen to me ramble about anything specific. I just really hope that when we start listening to this, the first song starts, I'm not disappointed with the way the music sounds. I want it to sound high fidelity. I want it to sound expensive. I want it to sound like a band who knew what they were doing. I want it to sound like an audio engineer who knew what they were doing when they were recording.
I want it to sound high fidelity. I want it to sound expensive. I want it to sound like a band who knew what they were doing. I want it to sound like an audio engineer who knew what they were doing when they were recording.
That's almost maybe even more important to me than the songwriting in some cases. Obviously, the songwriting is the most important part, I would say, but yeah. Okay, so let's see. One last thing I have to mention. I have an extra cable plugged into my headphones here, and I have to mention it because it actually reverses the stereo image of my headphones. So if I say something's on the right, but for you it's on the left, know that that's just me not thinking of it and paying attention at the moment. So with that said, track 1. Okay, the first track is the one that features Max Cavalera, so we're going right away. I will say some of the other Demon Hunter's other albums where they've used all of the guest vocals, I really enjoy that. They did, obviously, World is a Thorn. They had both Bjorn Strid from Soilwork, and they had Christian Alveston, one of my all-time favorite metal vocalists from Soilwork, and now more recently Miseration, and all sorts of really awesome bands, as guesting on that album. So, like, I'm excited for the guest vocals. So, all right, without any further ado, let's just do this. Track 1, Demon Hunter Exile, Track 1, 2022, Defense Mechanism. That's not the right thing. Defense Mechanism. Okay. Okay, hold on. Okay. Boy, that started out just like really crazy. Okay. I had it too low, had to reach over, turn the volume up. Okay. Now I can adjust the volume a little better from here. I can always turn it down. Let's start this again. So the kick, it's not that bad. I think I'll be able to get used to it. But one thing that Demon Hunter does is that the frequencies of the kick are higher frequencies than the frequency of the snare. It's weird to me that they do that sometimes on some of their albums. That kick drum is really loud. The guitars don't have very much definition to them, and they sound a little bit far away and thin. Wow. Wow. So this is Max Cavalera. Love that. It's like a dancey feel almost. Obviously very aggressive, this song so far. I love that. I love this sort of gang vocals. There's some interesting, like, program stuff in there, like, it's almost very In Flamesy. I feel like the kick is a little too loud. But maybe not. It's much more common nowadays to have the kick, the snare, and the vocals be up a lot louder than they have been in what would be considered like a normal metal mix, even 10 years ago. because of all the inclusion of lots of electronics in a lot of metal music, which there's not very much here. I love this like shouting, screaming. Demon Hunter has definitely done this sort of like anthem thing before in the past. Man, that kick is all encompassing. I feel like the guitars are a little low in the mix. You can discern what's happening with them though. This is a little bit strange. Like the song is a little bit different. You know, that guitar riff is very In Flames. Okay, interesting. Interesting first track. Okay, this is Master. Okay, that's a cool vocal effect. It makes him sound far away, a little distortion. Whoa. What the heck? Oh my gosh, that is so loud. My goodness, that's way louder than it probably should be. Especially compared to the volume of the vocals. Very cool, sort of like a synth-based thing in there. Some little ominous sort of pads in there. And I love the sort of like the guitar stabs that sounds like white noise. Lots of reverb on Ryan's vocals to make it sound darker. Or that's lends it to the eerie atmosphere. Wow. So the vocals are the guitars are way louder on this album. Sorry, jeez. The guitars sound way more up front in the mix on this song. Ryan's vocals are very dry in the middle. I feel like his vocals are really fluctuating in volume here throughout the song, and I don't really think that that's a good thing. I would love to see the waveform for this song. That sound is like way too loud. That's so strange. And it's so dry. This is very Depeche Mode, this part here. I mean, the vocals are very low here compared to like this, and I get it. The vocals are too low here, or the rest of the music sounds too loud. Mastered by Zeus. Produced, engineered, and mixed by Jeremiah Scott. And I've heard that name before, I assume in relation to some of their other albums. Very strange. They're really pushing the elements of the song that are not the metal elements. And that's really interesting. And that kick sounds pretty terrible. Very strange song. Oh my goodness. So this is a song featuring Tom S. England. Silence the World. Oh my gosh, this song is 7 minutes and 13 seconds long. Heck yeah, let's go. Look, they have several 6-minute songs. Let's go. Love these synths. What the heck? We're getting into Stranger Things territory here. I'm feeling a little conflicted because there's like a rawness to the mix that I don't necessarily find pleasing. Okay, really cool there. Those are very similar chords to the previous song used during that big part. I can hear the guitars a lot more. What are the vocals gonna sound like though? That's the thing that's starting to scare me a little bit. Cool. I guess one of the things I'm saying is this album sounds way too dynamic. Like the little bit low and further behind the music I feel and I would want it to be. Certainly this album is not suffering from overcompression. The palm muted guitars here are a little low. But like I said, I feel like they're just kind of pushing all the elements of the music that aren't the guitars. Which is a weird thing to say, like, yes, I guess you could say the guitars feel like they're a little lower in the mix, but here they've jumped up in volume a lot. Very cool vocal part there. Having everything come in. Whoa, what is that? That's cool. That. It was there for a sec. It was really cool. And again, the kick and the snare are really in there. The volume of the vocals should be relatively equal to the volume of the kick and the snare, and definitely they are not here. Like the volume, I would say the vocals are too quiet. Especially here during this part. This may be the first metal album I've ever heard that I would say is not compressed enough. And the mix is so odd. Very buzzy sounding guitar in there. It's kind of cool. Very cool. We got some guitars going on here, harmonized. Some interesting pedals they must be using, some different effects on them. It's cool. I like the guitar tone. Very different. I'm not someone that necessarily minds buzzy guitar tones if it's being done correctly, and I feel like this is pretty cool. All right. Two guitar parts going on at once here, harmonizing with each other a little bit every now and then, but also you can discern the two parts. Multi-track there, it sounded like as well. Guitar's a little bit twangy sounding. Okay, Tom England is back. I mean, I can hear all the vocals, I can hear what they're doing, but I feel like they're a little bit low. I don't think that they're like unacceptably low. Like I said, it's very strange. It almost feels to me like certain things are too loud rather than having certain elements be too low in the mix. Normally, I feel like you would, you know, in this case, I would say like, oh, the vocals are too low, but it almost feels like other elements are too loud and they're fighting for the space that the vocals should occupy. Like here, this is really cool, and it's very subtle what the lead guitars are doing. You know, they're certainly not the focal point because they're not being pushed volume or like there's not a space carved out for them. They're just kind of sitting there in the back in the middle, and it's neat what they're doing. It's subtle. It's an interesting riff. This is definitely more of like a progressive sounding song, and the fact that it's almost 7 minutes 15 seconds long is really, wow. That was so interesting. This is just so not what I was expecting. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it. Definitely the vocals are too quiet still. Everything else sounds really good. I just don't know why the vocals are so quiet. Yeah, you almost can't even hear what's going on in the vocals here. Yeah. Yeah, you can't... I almost can't even hear what he's saying because the vocals are too low. That's really disappointing. What I have found is that generally when you're listening to music and the vocals are too low, that's probably because the vocalist had final say in how loud the vocals should be, and they wanted the vocals turned down. That's generally what I find to be the case. The vocals that are there definitely seem like they're very dry as well. Here we have some background vocals in there, some notes hanging over. Guitar solo. The guitar solo is definitely at the volume of the lead vocals. So I think that it's a little low as well. Definitely low. So maybe that was more of a mastering thing. Because sometimes mastering engineers, they consider it their sole duty in life to bring the stuff that's on the sides, that's mixed wide, up and smash it to the most maximum possible. And what happens is the things that are panned in the middle get left behind a little bit. But it's to such an extreme here that I think that that's partly on mastering maybe, and partly on the mix as well. Like they just wanted the volume of the vocals to be quieter. But I would say that the sonic quality of everything I'm hearing is pretty good. Like the guitars sound nice. I do think the kick is a little loud, but it's not distracting me being too loud. I think the kick and the drums and the guitars and the bass are the proper volume, I guess. But the vocals are just too low. So this is a cool guitar riff. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Very cool. Love all these fast picking guitars in there. It's very cool. Very in flames. Man, this is strange. Okay, another place. Okay, maybe a slower song. I've heard almost no piano at all. Oh, that was one thing I was going to say. I was really going to be curious about how this album sounded, knowing that their last album was an acoustic album. You know, I was curious. I wanted to point out that I was thinking that it might be a really heavy album because they just had an album that wasn't heavy at all. You know, it was an acoustic album. But they had all sorts of piano on that album, plus some strings and things. Really nice acoustic guitars, vocals really nice. Okay, there's a bit of like a rotary effect on Ryan's vocals, a little bit of like a warble. The Demon Hunter has definitely used that on songs in the past. Very 90s sounding guitar tone here. It's kind of neat. Wow. Okay. Trying to decide if I think the volume of the vocals is a little bit better in this song. No, it's definitely still too low. It's so crazy to me that a band can be so prolific and so experienced and then still have such a like a glaringly obvious like thing wrong with the mix. You know, and I don't know how much say they have in what's happening after they're done recording. I know when I did talk to Yogi about recording the drums for True Defiance, he said he just went into the studio, recorded everything, and then he is not one of the guys in the band that's like a studio guy. He just did his parts and then left and trusted them to make it sound good in terms of the samples they chose for the kick, the snare, and everything. And you know, so I think Ryan is I'm pretty sure I've heard that he is more of a hands-on guy in the studio, wanting to be part of everything, but I don't know. I mean, it says on here definitely produced, engineered, and mixed by Jeremiah Scott, mastered by Zeus. It says screaming vocals recorded at the property in Washington. So I'm guessing Ryan recorded his own screaming vocals. That would be my guess. Keys and programming by Jeremiah Scott and Patrick Judge. Nice guitar solo here. I feel like I really would like this if I could hear what he was singing. Really nice vocal harmony here. Very cool. Cool going back to the beginning, like sort of opening riff. I thought this one could have been more of a ballad, but it turned not into that, which is cool. Very cool. Ooh, that was like a weird click. Okay, Freedom is Dead. That feedback in there is really cool. I really love this. I just wish the vocals were the proper volume. I actually got to turn the volume of it down a little. But that's going to make it even harder for me to hear what he's saying. That's so cool. This is so In Flames. It's a cool chorus. Love that how his vocals are. Those vocals are kind of going with that thing that's happening. Very cool. Very cool. Now the sliding like pick sounds on the guitar, very cool. Man, I'm really disappointed because I like a lot of what I'm hearing. This is really cool. And the vocals, I would say, are less bad on this song, like in terms of the volume, but it's not the proper, it's not mixed properly. And that was cool. That was a cool song. Okay, Praise the Void. Crazy that we started this album with that first track. Okay, this sounds a little bit better. I would say here it sounds a lot more comparable. Like the kick, the snare, and the vocals are relatively the same volume. But this part sounds really wimpy, kind of. But that's okay, that's like a mixing thing. Like, this is not, I'm assuming everything will get bigger during the chorus. Those synths, really cool. This is a song from Songs of Death and Resurrection. That's awesome. I was gonna say, I thought the forest was... Wow, that's really awesome. I don't know if I've ever known a band that would, you know, recorded a song specially for their acoustic album and then on their next album release the full band version. That's very cool. I would definitely say the mix on this song feels more maybe what it should be. I mean, certainly the kick is not this giant, massive thing. And on one hand, I can appreciate the fact that they are sort of treating each song, you know, like its own thing, but the vocals are just too quiet. Not as bad on this song, though. I definitely want to point that out. It's really cool to hear this song knowing that I've heard the acoustic version of this. That's very cool. Huh. Yeah, definitely. Like, the kick and the snare sound completely different. You know, the guitars are loud, but they're not as loud as they have been. But it's also they're doing less. You know, they're just basically strumming. And his vocal harmonies are perfect here. It's very nice. It's a bummer. I definitely have to say I'm disappointed because I feel like they're trying really interesting and different things. And even the mix is like really interesting and different, but I don't think it's different in a good way. Very cool. There's a low pass filter on his vocals here. I'm sure there's a high pass at a certain frequency as well, but feels thinner, a little bit more muted. Very cool effect with the making it feel a little bit more ethereal, a little bit more lo-fi sounding. You know, the drums, everything are being pushed to the back. Nothing is really standing out here. Everything is being muted and pushed down. And that's okay for a bridge of a song like this. I feel like that should have been like this soaring moment, da da da, like going into the chorus, and instead it was just kind of this meek little thing in the background. So it's just so many interesting things happening here, and it's not really interesting good. Yeah, this is a bummer. I love the fact that they're doing this, though. Like, I really do. And I know I already mentioned it, but, like, just the fact that this is the full band version of a song that they did for their acoustic album is really cool. I love that. It's like doing something like that is like the reverse of what most bands would do. And I love that these songs are long. They have patience to them. Most of them do so far. Gosh, it's funny. Like, I have like no clue what to think is coming next. Okay, they're fading that out. Okay. Very cool transition there into this. This is Revolutions. Okay. Very cool. Oh, we'll see what Ryan's vocals do when they come in, if they sound really low. Very cool. Okay. Yes, they are definitely too quiet, but I was expecting harsh vocals. Good vocal harmonies. I think the harsh vocals sound like they're maybe a little bit higher in the mix. Now, obviously, it's tough because harsh vocals are more easy to hear because they're harsh, they're intense. Whereas a soft singing voice, you have to push the mix. It's just so strange. Like, there are moments where I feel like it's okay, and then there are moments where it's like, this is obviously like 4 dB too low, you know? It's very common to talk about like the pocket. And most of the time when you're talking about the pocket in music, you're talking about the pocket of the groove, and the drummer has to try to stay within the pocket. You can be a little ahead, you can be a little bit behind, but it has to be within that sort of acceptable pocket. The same can be said for the volume of every different instrument, and when you're mixing something can exist in the pocket. And with vocals, it's essential that the vocal has to sit within the acceptable pocket of volume. So where if it falls below the acceptable level, it's too quiet. You can't hear what's going on, and it's not balancing with the rest of the music. Whereas if it's way too far above, it's obviously too loud and all-encompassing, and it's drowning everything else out. I feel like this is sitting on the line, and because it's dynamic the way it is, there are moments where they're like stretching into being like pretty okay volume. Then there are other moments where it's like, nope, now we're down below the pocket. It's very strange. I don't know if I've ever heard anything mixed like this. It's not so egregiously bad that like it's making me hate it or anything, because I have definitely heard music, metal, that's been so bad that it's made me just mad at it. But this is not doing that. But also, just like the song arrangements and stuff are really interesting and different. Like, it's definitely a different sounding Demon Hunter album all around. Like, this is Demon Hunter-y. I could see this being on one of their previous albums, but the thing that's the most befuddling thing to me is the mix, though. Sounds cool, though. I would even say the volume of this guitar solo is fine. I'll have to see if I can find some interviews with them or something, you know. Obviously, if you're a band promoting your own album, you can't talk about, like, negative things like that, you know. I hope that this album sounds the way they wanted it to sound like, and I'm just not connecting with it on the way that they wanted me to. You know, but sometimes you get the master back and you're like, oh no, you know, this isn't what I want it to sound like. But Demon Hunter's a big enough band that they could just pay to have it mastered again, you know? Or have the mastering engineer tweak it so that it does sound the way they want it to be done. I just spent a long time mastering my own album, and it is a horrific process. And you have to accept all these compromises, and it's actually terrible. Really disappointing that you have to go through the process of doing that to make the music loud enough to be like commercially acceptable. But again, it has to sit within that pocket. I will say I like the musicality of this song. Oh, very cool. Going back to the beginning. I forgot that the song even started heavy like that. I love the length of these songs. I like that it's definitely a more progressive Demon Hunter album, for sure. I'll be curious to see, like, if I listen to this in my car when I'm driving. I have a very loud vehicle, a 2004 or 2005 Jeep. I don't even know if I'll be able to tell that there are even vocals happening during the moments where he's, like, clean singing. So that's just... I'm so just... This is an and one song. That is like an identical intro to a song that I've heard. Okay, this is Chemicals. Completely different volume. Completely different volume. Terrible. Completely different mix. Completely. What? This sounds like the first track, kind of. The vocals are 7 dB too low. Unacceptable. This is horrific. This is so bad. What the? Was this album even mastered at all? This is so strange. And that kick and the snare are the only thing that you really can hear. No one could listen to this and think that this is acceptable. Volume. This song is just like straight up like 3-4 dB quieter than the rest of the songs on the album. Sounds like a cool, well-written song. God, that is strange. The waveform for this has to look completely different. I'll try to put like a picture or something on screen comparing the waveform for the last song and the waveform for this song. Because I'll bet you it's noticeably smaller. And it's not a ballad. This is really bad. Like, this is not professional level. I don't mean level of volume, I mean professional level of quality. Dang. And it sounds like it's cool. And I don't think it's just quiet either, like it's still not mixed very good. This is just amateur. Very cool vocal part. It's cool. Holding that note out is really cool. The chemicals. Very cool. I'm hearing lots of weird frequencies in the guitars that don't need to be there. Just muddying frequencies, like they definitely did not EQ the guitars, I don't feel, very properly. And I've kind of thought that across the whole album, but I will say for the most part it sounded pretty good, but like as I've already mentioned this whole song, this is unacceptable, terrible. Were before in the chemical. Huh. I mean, here, the obvious problem is that the kick and the snare are too loud compared to everything else. If you brought that down and brought the volume of everything else up, this could be acceptable, you know, and I can't just turn the volume of the whole volume of my computer up to compensate for it, because then the kick and the snare would be like way more massive than they need to be, for sure. Dang. Man, this is really disappointing. Dang it. It just is so strange to me that a band that's this big can miss the mark with the mix so bad. I don't know what the next song's gonna sound like. Is it gonna go back to like just exploding and being really loud? This is the one featuring Richie Faulkner, Godless. I mean, already it's 4 dB louder than the last track. I mean, so far this sounds great. Guarantee the vocals will come in and be way too quiet. So I assume Richie Faulkner was a vocalist, but maybe he's a guitar player. Oh yeah, lead guitars on Godless by Richie Faulkner. Gang vocals by Lauren 2. Yeah, the vocals are way too low. Interesting here. Man, it is so disappointed that the vocals are so quiet. You know, hopefully when you're listening to this, you can tell what I'm talking about. Obviously, I'm listening with I love these headphones. I don't know what earbuds would sound like. Generally, when I listen to things on earbuds, I feel like it makes the stuff that's on the sides of the mix, panned left and right, even more loud than the stuff in the middle. I mean, this guitar riff is awesome, and it sounds pretty good. I still feel like there's maybe some like frequency buildup that doesn't need to be in there, but it sounds good. And it sounds like the guitars are actually pretty level with the drums, I would say, in this song. But the vocals are just buried. Dang it. I would definitely say I think this is the first album that's had this issue in their catalog, having the vocals just be way too low. I don't think I've experienced that before with them. You know, any other issues, not even issues, but any other things that I thought were maybe not as good as they could have been on some of their other albums mix-wise, it's always been, you know, just the way the things sounded and interacted together, not necessarily the volume of the vocals. It's a cool chorus. I like the guitar riff here, the start and stop, the choppiness of it. Okay, track 11, Devotion. That's a cool sound. I love this. Very cool, very groovy. Having the drums just be simple, pretty much 4 to the floor. A little slower than the, you know, they could be going all out. Harsh vocals, again, they're fitting into the mix a little bit better. I definitely still think they could be louder, but we'll see what happens if he starts singing. Yeah, it's like it's behind everything. There's that awesome tambourine that they used a lot in the early part of their career. Now you can't even tell what they're saying. That's cool. Terrible. Terrible mix. Terrible mix. Pretty sure it's the mix and not the master. Trying to debate that over the last couple minutes. Like, when you're, like, again, when you're mastering something, you do bring the side, the sounds that are on the sides, the left and the right, you do bring that up a lot more just through the process of compression and things. But this, it just sounds like they were like, let's take all the vocals and turn them down 3 dB. And like I said, it rides the cusp of that line. I feel like it's all lower than it should be across the board, every part of the vocals, but it rides the line of being acceptable, not acceptable volume, acceptable, not acceptable volume, and it does that within songs. So the vocals are definitely mixed dynamically. They're just mixed dynamically too low, which is... This would definitely be one of my favorite songs on the album. I don't know if I would say that I really enjoyed any song on this album because of the mix. I've liked the arrangements of some of them for sure. Some of them more than others. Some of them have just absolutely baffled me. Last track, 8 minutes long here. We'll see what happens. It might only be 4 minutes, then like 4 minutes of a... I like the longer intro here. This all sounds fine, I would say. It sounds pretty good. We'll see what happens when the vocals come in, though. Too low still. Staying consistently low, I guess I would say that. To an extent, you know, I mentioned the being in the realm of acceptable, out of the realm of acceptable. Man, it's just so disappointing. I mean, Ryan Clark is one of my favorite metal vocalists. Not just screaming even necessarily, but I like that he has a slightly lower register vocal, so he can, slower register voice. He can do lots of really cool things that other vocalists wouldn't do, you know, and in metal it's so common to have the person, what they're aiming for is, you know, but Ryan's never been that person at all. He has really cool, you know, one of my favorite songs of Demon Hunter is Thorns, and that's low, you know, the flow. He can do that sort of lower register, and I think it's awesome. Even if he's doing background vocals like that, it's really cool. But he has lead vocals like that. There you can discern some of the bass a little bit. Oh, disappointing. See, Extremist, produced and engineered by Jeremiah Scott. Additional production and engineering and editing, Aaron Sprinkle. Mixed by Zeus. Mastered by Troy Glessner. So this one was mixed and produced by Jeremiah Scott, mastered by Zeus. Well, someone screwed up. Let's see, did those guys work on... Let's see, Death and Resurrection. Produced and mixed by Jeremiah Scott, recorded by Jeremiah Scott, additional engineering Zach Odom, mastered by Troy Glessner, who did War and Peace. Engineered and mixed by Jeremiah Scott, mixed and mastered by Zeus. Sounds way better than this. So I don't know what the heck. That is so strange. I should be talking. I'll probably cut some of this out where I'm just sitting here. I'm gonna text my friend Chris, who also enjoys Demon Hunter, see if he has listened to this. I said, did you listen to the new Demon Hunter yet? See if he responds. A lot of low frequencies on the toms there. That sounds nice. I'm not even mad or disappointed that they're fading it out, because I just kind of want it to end. Okay, well, dang it. Dang it. Oh, that is disappointing. Dang it. Oh, shootski. Okay, that is Exile by Demon Hunter. And, oh, man. Well, if you skip to the end here, just to hear my thoughts on the album, unfortunately, I gotta say, I did not like it at all. I think that the mix was actually, like, bad. The sonic quality of everything that I was hearing was actually good. I do think that there could have maybe been more EQing and, like, managing of the guitars to make them maybe sound a little bit better. But overall, I would say the quality of everything that I was hearing was 100% adequate, if not great. Hold on, I gotta check this. Okay, so that was my friend Chris. I texted him right there during the last song there because I wanted to know if he had listened to the album too. So I don't remember what I was saying, but just basically the album is really disappointing to me because, oh boy, you can go back and hear me talk more in detail about it. But from the first moment the first song started, I was like, what? The first track sounded weird. Like the guitar, the level of the guitars was way too low, and the mix sounded a little weird. And then track 2 started, and it was the same kind of mix, but then there was just this like ridiculously overly loud thing happening. He's going to listen to a few songs right now, so we'll see if he gets back to me. I'll just put my phone away. I know that's probably really loud in the microphone. The second track started, and it was not, I wouldn't necessarily say okay, but all of a sudden it was just this like too loud. This like thing came in, it was like this explosion. It was too loud, and it happened a bunch of times. I was like, what the heck? Well, what I came to realize over the course of the album is that was the actual volume of the album. The thing that I was hearing that was too loud, that was the actual, like, there's the ceiling for the album, and that's where a majority of the album sits. However, the vocals were 4 to 5 dB, I would say, maybe 3 to 4 dB too low across the board. However, the whole album was mixed very dynamically, meaning that there were parts of songs that were quiet and parts of songs that were loud. And I feel like the playing was consistent volume throughout the songs, but the mix, they chose to like boost certain parts and certain things. And that's not uncommon at all. And I think that for the most part, the music actually sounded okay across the album. There were 2 tracks that sounded bad. And the one song, which one? Chemicals. Terrible. It sounded terrible. When Chemicals was playing, I said that I would find the waveform for that song and take a picture of it, maybe put it next to the waveform of the song that came before it, which was much better mixed. That was Revolutions. So if I did that and I managed to make it work, I'll put it up again here so that you can see. But it just, Chemicals started and I was like, what the heck? This is from a whole different album. This sounds terrible. The mix was not really very good, and it was like way lower in volume than the rest of the album. And it's not because it was a ballad or something. If you just skip to the end without hearing the music, it was totally the same style of song. It just was mixed differently. But the volume of the vocals across the whole album was too low, but because the vocals were done dynamically and mixed dynamically, the thing that was the hardest for me to wrap my head around, and still to me is baffling, is I was talking about the pocket of acceptability, if you will, when you're mixing. When you hear about someone refer to the pocket when they're talking about music, usually the most common way for that term to be used is if you're talking about a drummer or a rhythm section in a band, but usually the drummer fitting within the pocket of the groove, right? So as a drummer, you can play slightly ahead of, some drummers have the tendency to play slightly ahead of a groove, making the song feel like it's moving forward and rushing a little bit more. And maybe not necessarily even in a bad way. That can be really good depending on the style of music. And then other drummers have a tendency to sit behind the beat a little bit, and everything feels like it's being maybe pulled a little bit forward, and that can work really well with certain styles of music, like blues and certain styles of jazz and things. But as a drummer, you have those options. You can be slightly ahead of the beat, slightly behind the beat. It can fluctuate throughout a song. So that's usually what they were talking about with the pocket. There's an acceptable amount of being just slightly behind the beat, and an acceptable amount of being slightly ahead of the beat before it becomes the wrong timing, if that makes sense. So when I was talking about the pocket here, what I was talking about was that same sort of theory about something being within an acceptable range. But when you're talking about being in the pocket of the rhythm, of the groove, you're talking about being within the acceptable range of the timing. So if you're too far off, whether it's too slow or too fast, you're no longer playing the correct timing of the song. But the same thing and the same principle holds true if you're talking about the loudness of each individual element of a song, right? Sometimes you'll listen to a song and if it's a really complex arrangement, you can listen to it for the 100th time and you hear something in the song that you didn't necessarily notice before, and there can be all these subtle things happening within the mix. And it's hard to do those things, to have those little special things hidden in the mix that can kind of come out, and things can be under the acceptable volume of a level under the acceptable volume. What am I trying to say? They can be underneath the volume of the acceptable pocket range, and that's sort of like a little treat that you can find hidden in a mix. But the vocals are one of the key elements of a song and should never be below the acceptable pocket volume. So the vocals always need to, and there's different ways to correctly mix a song. But again, there's a range, there's a percentage that you can deviate, being something being slightly too loud or something being slightly, no, not too loud. You can mix something the perfect volume, right? If you think of it, perfect volume is a straight line. You can be slightly above that line or slightly below that line volume-wise and still be within the acceptable range, the acceptable percentage, the acceptable pocket of what would sound like it's fitting within the rest of the mix. But the vocals on this album were like sitting on the line of acceptable. And they were always consistently too low, I would say, but there were certain vocals that I would say felt within, they were just barely scratching the bottom level, the lowest that they could have been while still being acceptable. But because the vocals were mixed dynamically, there were many, many, many times where the vocals did dip way below that acceptable volume. Okay, I want to see what he's saying here. Okay, I'm so sorry. I was hoping that I could get a conversation out of him that I could use in the video because he had heard it, but he's not. So now he's listening to it saying like, yes, what the heck? What is this? You know, because the vocals were consistently sitting on the very bottom basement level of acceptable volume, and because they fluctuated and were dynamic, they kept dipping way below, and that meant that it was outside of the pocket and was just literally the incorrect volume to work with the song. And that is so disappointing. I've only ever heard a few other albums where that was the case. And one of those, definitely one of the biggest tearing my heart out moments that I've ever heard listening to an album, one of my absolute favorite bands of all time called Mesh. Their last 3 albums have been masterpiece albums in my opinion. But the middle one of those last 3, called Automation Baby, that album, across the whole album, the vocals are mixed just slightly under the acceptable pocket volume. So you're listening to the album, you can still hear the vocals, and there are background vocals and things that are maybe the acceptable volume for background vocals, but the lead vocal is always too low, and for me, it ruins that whole album. Now there were other things in the mix that I would question as to whether or not they should have made those decisions. But I feel like overall, this album sounds the way that they wanted it to sound. I did mention while we were listening that usually what I've found to be the case when working with artists and different people on just my own projects and just knowing how certain things, work in the studio, if the vocalist has final say on the volume of their vocals, a lot of the times people are so uncomfortable hearing themselves when a band is sitting there listening to a mix. Usually you have the guitar player sitting there going, turn the guitars up, I can't hear them enough. And then the drummer will be like, well, now the drums are too low. And there's all sorts of there's lots of funny videos online about that. But the vocalists usually are the ones that feel the most hatred for their own performance. And if they have a lot of self-doubt and self-confidence issues, they'll be like, no, turn the vocals down. My voice is too exposed in the mix. And that can really be to the detriment of the mix of the mix. And I feel like, I don't know if that's what happened here, but so yeah, just like super disappointing about that. So ignoring that for a second and just pretend that wasn't something that ruins the whole album to me, because I do think that the way that the album is mixed with the vocals being too low, it did ruin the album for me. This album is not. This is probably my second least favorite Demon, maybe even in my opinion, the worst Demon Hunter album. Now, because of this one particular thing, but there was a lot more, I feel like, progressive elements on this album. The guitar playing, really none of the guitar playing stood out to me at all as being super interesting. But I do feel like the songs were all stretched a little bit more. There was a lot more sections that were repeated a few times, maybe repeated one whole additional repeating section or whatever. That was a stupid way to say that. I feel like there were several sections of songs that they played the whole section, and then they just repeated the whole section again. And what that did was it stretched out the lengths of the songs to be significantly longer than a lot of their other songs, and that gave the instruments and that gave everything a little bit of time to breathe, and that gives you, the listener, time to sort of like fall into it a little bit more. That's a really weird way to say that, but I think that it because of that, it felt more progressive to me. The volume of the guitar solos was also low, I would say, across the album. It was okay. I feel like it's because a guitar solo happens so much less in a song than lead vocals. It's okay. It's a little bit more acceptable to have the volume of a guitar solo too low. But there were just, it was so strange because the vocals were so low. I turned the volume of the music up at first to the volume that the vocals should be, that I was listening to the vocals, and I thought, oh, the kick and the snare are too loud. And then on the first track, the guitar sounded way too quiet. And then, like I said, in that second track, that loud booming thing came in, and I realized, oh, this part that's feeling way too loud to me, this is actually the loudness of the album. This is the volume of the album that they were aiming for. Track 1 was just like too low across the board, with the exception of the kick and the snare, which felt too loud for the mix of that song. And then getting into some of the other songs that had that consistently loud volume, but having the vocals be too low, consistently too low, it created this weird thing in my head where I was like, I'm not sure if I should turn it up to compensate for the lack of vocals or turn it down for the loudness. Like the beginning of the whole, when listening to the album, I kept saying like, this feels so weird to me because it doesn't feel like anything's too quiet. It feels like certain elements are too loud. And the more I thought about that as I was listening, the more I realized why that was happening was because one of the most important fundamental aspects of music, especially vocal, modern music like this, is the vocals. The volume of the vocal, the lead vocal, the kick, the snare, and then, you can have other certain elements, but the volume of the vocal, the kick, and the snare should be relatively sitting with each other and be consistent across an album, and you can do all sorts of things and have all sorts of experimental things that change that. But for the most part, the lead vocals should be something that is a featured and prominent element of a song that you're hearing. And when that was too low, because that's such a fundamental aspect of music, it felt to me like other elements of the song were too loud, rather than just saying, oh, if these vocals were just turned up, it would fix the mix. Though I do think that probably was the case. If the vocals were turned up a little bit more throughout the whole album, I feel like the mix would have been a lot more consistent. And if the vocals were within that acceptable pocket all the way through, even if they were still just a little bit low, I would feel way better about the album. But then the dynamics of the rest of everything that was happening in the song, whether you had like a lead guitar part or like just a rhythm guitar part, there was a couple songs that I thought the riff that was happening was really cool, and then the vocals would come in, and Demon Hunter has always done this thing where they sort of juxtapose. If it's an aggressive guitar riff and the song is aggressive and heavy, Ryan feels like he can sing soft and quiet over the top of that. And when that's the case, you have to do some compromises with the mix. You have to write the song and then record the song and edit and mix the song in such a way that you're taking some of the intensity out of the instruments to allow for like the gentleness or softness of the vocal to sit on top of everything, because you can't just take all this aggressiveness and put something soft and gentle and timid over the top of it and have it work. It's too juxtaposed. At that point, it becomes like a novelty thing. And Demon Hunter has done a really great job over the course of their tenure as a band, finding ways to use those juxtaposing elements of harsh and intense with the beautiful and the sentimental and the timid feeling other elements. Even just having a piano over the top of a metal song can be something that's difficult. But they found really cool ways of doing that and mixing their songs and stuff throughout their whole career to make it work. Here, it just did not work really at all. It felt like everything was being drowned out by everything else. I want to hear what he said because he's listening to the album too. He's going through the same thing that I was going through, like sort of like withdrawal of like, oh, not withdrawal. What do they call it? The denial of like, no, how is this possible? How could Demon Hunter have an album that sounds like this. And that was my thing the whole time. I was like, what the heck? You know, I understand that you can make a bad decision that for me personally would, you know, have some part of like the perfect example of this. The most recent Blue October album, they did something that was unforgivable to me in their mix. Justin, the lead singer of Blue October, recorded 2 takes of his vocal, and then they panned them wide left and wide right. And so when you listen to that album, almost across the whole album, the drums, the bass, and all the cool elements of a song are in the middle, and then his vocals are spread wide, and it just sounds awful to me. Now, that is something that they chose to do specifically. They made that choice, and they wanted it to sound like that. And so I personally didn't like that, and I think that album is bad because of that, but that's my personal decision. Here, with this album, this is objectively bad, I feel. I feel like there are certain things on here that are an unacceptable level of quality for a band as big as Demon Hunter is. And I'm not saying that they had millions and millions and millions of dollars to put into this. But I feel like when you are a band that's been around for 20 years and you have this entire stack of music, which all sounds better than this, you know, a band should never regress in their sound unless there's some catastrophic thing that happens with them, you know? But man, that's just so disappointing. It's so disappointing. And that's my... You know, I almost feel like I'm less disappointed because it was pretty consistently bad throughout. You know, and I don't know if the style of the songs and the arrangements of the songs and everything were such that if it was mixed perfectly, if it still would have been my favorite Demon Hunter album, you know. There were a lot of elements missing from this. I didn't hear a piano once on there. But like I said, I think that it makes sense that they wouldn't use a piano because they used so much piano on their last album, their acoustic album, that maybe they wanted to do something different here. There were some really cool synth moments towards the beginning of the album, but then towards the end, I didn't notice that at all. There was only like 2 heavy songs that incorporated harsh vocals. And there was one song that started really heavy, and then the whole 3.5 minutes in between, it started really heavy, and then there was 3.5 minutes of like a regular sort of mid-tempo song, and then it ended heavy. That was kind of neat, the fact that they did that, but a little disappointing. But that was a cool song. I think the best mixed song on this album is Praise the Void, which I said I was really excited about because I was listening to it and I was like, hold on a second, this sounds familiar to me. And they did a really cool thing. You know, they took one of the songs that they wrote as an original song for their acoustic album, and they did a full band version of it for their next album that came after the acoustic one. I don't know if I've ever heard of a band doing that before. I think that was really awesome. And you can tell listening to that song that the vocals were just a little bit higher. They were still too low, but they were a little bit higher, and the mix was just a little bit more, I guess, what you would expect the mix to be. But certain songs just had this element to them that was so much louder than everything else. It was like, what the heck? And then, like I said, when I realized that loudness, the loudness of that element that I felt was too loud, that was what the loudness that they were aiming for, that was supposed to be the constant, then you realize that everything else, all these other elements, are just too low. And then, like I said, when it got to track 9, or track 10, which one is it? Yeah, Chemicals, track 9. Just unacceptable. I mean, that sounded like it was mixed and recorded on a whole different planet and way more amateur. And I feel like that song probably was the most comparable to track 1. Man, that is just, it boggles my mind. I'm very disappointed because Demon Hunter is such a special and important band to me. Obviously, you could tell from what I was saying at the beginning of the video, but man, that is disappointing. So I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I already have a really long video. The length of the songs was cool. Like I said, the songs were stretched. I feel like there was more patience included in a lot of them. Ryan's vocals were really nice when I could hear what they were doing. There were harmony parts. But overall, just super disappointed. Yeah, my friend Chris just said that he swapped over to listen to one of his favorite heavy albums of the year, which is by a band called Dayseeker that I've never even heard of. But he said the difference of listening to that, which is an album, again, that he's loved this year that's a heavy album, switching from that to this was night and day. And I feel like one of my favorite heavy albums of the year was Rack Shack by Bloodywood. If I listen to that and then listen to this, there's no question which one sounds better, which one sounds more consistent. And I'm not even saying that consistency equals like being better, but just disappointing. And I feel so bad because, well, no, I don't even feel like, I kind of feel like, I don't know why I feel this, but I kind of feel like with every Demon Hunter album that comes out, it's always like, okay, this might be the last Demon Hunter album, you know? And I remember reading interviews with them in the past where they've said that they'll continue to be Demon Hunter and continue to make Demon Hunter albums as long as they can, because I believe everyone in the band has a job that is their real job, and then Demon Hunter is like more of a passion project for them. And for so many people, Demon Hunter, so many people, for so many people, Demon Hunter is like the most important band in their life. Demon Hunter is one of those bands that lyrically and musically, they have saved people's lives, you know, and you can see that in their like 45 Days documentary. They're just one of those types of bands. And then the religious aspect, the faith aspect of their music as well, they are a band that saves lives. And that sounds so stupid and silly and cliche to say and stuff, but like it's legitimately true. And I'm sure that someone will listen to this album and they'll be reading the booklet and they'll just be like, wow, this is exactly what I needed to hear right now. I love what I'm hearing. This is my favorite Demon Hunter album of all time. This is my favorite album of all time, whatever. I'm sure that that person exists. However, like I said, I feel like objectively, this album is of unacceptable quality. And so that is just so disappointing to me. And that's where I'll leave it. I apologize for my phone beeping. I should put it on silent, but I'm really curious what he was going to say. And so, like I said, I'll just leave it there, and I will just be disappointed about this album, I guess. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you're able to get over this and if you do enjoy this album, because I would be curious to see. You know, like I said, I think that this is objectively bad, but maybe it is more of a subjective thing, and some people don't need to hear Ryan sing at all. You know, if they just made an instrumental album like this, I'd probably enjoy it a lot more, because then I wouldn't feel like something was wrong the whole time I was listening to the album. But I really love Demon Hunter. I have so much respect for the guys in the band. I think the artwork is so cool, everything about it, but I cannot find a way to excuse a band of this caliber having such amateurish sounding mistakes on an album that's their 11th album in their 20-plus year career. So I'll leave it there and say, yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time, maybe. Yeah, thank you very much.